Working with family is really hard. We had a really tough go our first year. So me and my brother were very opposite in personality. We figured out like what triggers him about me and what triggers me about him. So through the year, we've come to realize those things. And I would say like this year has been a lot better, just trying to navigate those things.
What would be one piece of advice to somebody listening about working with family?
Don't do it. No.
Welcome back to New York's Business Podcast. My name is Jacob Restituto. I'm the host and owner of Restituto Media, a full-service photo and video company here based on Long Island. And today I have Diana from Mama Chan's in Northport here, so I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. I really enjoyed when I checked out your restaurant. The food was phenomenal. I actually texted my wife after. I was like, that food was exceptional. So I give you guys a lot of credit, and I told my wife we got to come here on a date night because it was really, really, it's very rare that I go to a restaurant and be like, this food was really good.
And that's what you said when you came.
I wasn't blowing smoke. I really meant it. It was exceptional. So I love to hear I'm looking forward to hearing your story and hearing how you got started and hearing the process of building the restaurant. So the floor is yours.
So I have always wanted to own a restaurant. More specifically a restaurant bar for some reason. Always wanted to have a bar attached to it. But I've never bartended before this. Well, so prior to opening the restaurant, I had bartended at the space that was there before. And that's kind of how this whole thing came about. So I'd never bartended before I started bartending. And then the owners of that restaurant had allowed me to do pop-ups over the summer. So me, my brother, and my mom did 4 pop-ups, and we sold out of all 4 of them. And we were kind of like, oh, I think we could try to do this. Because I've always known that there would be like a want for it. So growing up, we were always like, we didn't really eat out at fast food Chinese restaurants. And we're like, this is the food that they should be eating, what we ate at home. Like clean, healthy, hit all the food groups. And my mom would make us dinner every night and always have like something from each food group. And we're like, this is what, and when our friends came over, they would always be like, oh, this is like the best. And they would love my mom's food. So I've always wanted to have a restaurant based on my mom's cooking. And she makes the best dumplings and the best noodles and just everything. So my brother too, our family, our lives revolve around food. We love hosting people. We love cooking for people. When we travel, we look for all the best restaurants. And that's just like what we do. So we decided to do it. Me and my brother, he's my partner. And I quit my job the week before we opened.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and then he quit his, and we just kind of opened the restaurant, not knowing a thing about operating a restaurant. Obviously, I've learned along the way. My parents owned restaurants back in the 80s, 90s, but I mean, and we grew up in the restaurant industry, but we didn't really know what it entailed to run a restaurant ourselves. So we're still learning, but we had a lot of help. Our first chef that we brought on, Michael Meehan, he really did an amazing job, like helping us get off the ground. So that helped a lot.
So there's a couple of points I want to talk
Yeah.
about. So you mentioned that your parents owned restaurants in the 80s and 90s. What kind of cuisine was that?
So sit down, nice sit down, but also fast food Chinese. I call it fast food, but nice sit down.
So
And
what would you determine the difference between fast food Chinese and your restaurant?
so like General Chow's chicken. I've never had that growing up. Like my mom, that it was never a dish that my mom ever cooked. But I think it was something that was invented for,
American Chinese food?
yeah. So a lot of those things, like even sesame chicken. I know we have sesame chicken on our menu, but it's like reinvented. That's something we never ate growing up. Uh, Beef and broccoli. I don't know, like any of those things.
Yeah, very interesting. What would be typical? Tell me about like a typical diet growing up. What was your mom cooking?
So we always had rice, white rice, a bowl of white rice, and we were like forced to like finish our bowl of rice. There was always a fresh vegetable, a Chinese vegetable, um, whether it was like Chinese water spinach or Chinese broccoli, bok choy, shiitake mushrooms, or mushrooms with asparagus. There was always a vegetable. She a lot of times made a huge pot of soup. So that was always a big part of our dinners. And then she would either fry fish, steam a fish, um, and then she would do some kind of meat braise or slow cooked pork or something. So it was always like multiple things going on at the same time.
Yeah, I like what you said about hitting all of the food groups.
Yeah.
I think that that's underrated in our society. It's typically just, whatever's convenient, but also like, and I also want to comment the fact that bok choy is absolutely an underrated vegetable
Totally.
in the American culture. It is. I like we talked about the briefly before we started filming the fact that I manage a small farm,
Right.
and bok choy is absolutely one of my favorite things to grow. It is so underrated, and you can use it in so many different
I didn't know
things.
you grew it.
What was
Huh.
that?
I didn't know you
I
grew
do,
bok choy.
yeah.
Huh.
It's delicious, and it cooks really well. It's really delicious raw. You could eat baby choy, or
Yeah.
it's
I
underrated.
wonder why more people don't eat it because it's available everywhere.
Sure, it's just I think a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Just like so I'm 50% Salvadorian. My mom's from El Salvador, and something like yuca. Are you familiar with
I love
yuca?
yuca.
Or it's really the Americanized version is I think cassava.
Okay.
And now you see it a lot as cassava flour,
Yes.
but you don't go
Like an
buy.
alternative.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a non-grain flour or like a
Gluten-free
a gluten-free
flour. Yeah.
flour. But I grew up like eating yuca. Like it's essentially a starchy potato, but you could put it in soups, you could fry it,
Mm-hmm.
you can mash it, and it's like it's amazing. But it's
So
just one of those
versatile.
cultural things
Yeah.
that like unless you've been exposed to it, you really wouldn't. Why would you venture out of your comfort zone? And I love venturing
Why
out of my
not?
comfort.
I
Well,
know.
I love doing it. That's you mentioned the fact that when we travel, you love to try all the restaurants,
Yeah.
and that's what I do. Wherever I am, I want to try the local cuisine, the mom and pop
Always.
stops.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to like the where everybody
No.
goes.
Yeah.
I want the bar
The
that
hidden
nobody,
gems.
the bar that
Always.
the blue collar workers go to of that local area, and I want the restaurants that everybody goes to when tourists aren't there. That's
Yep.
what I'm looking for. You mentioned you quit your job a week before you
Yep.
started working. What was that job? That restaurant that was there
No,
before, or was
no,
there
no.
something else?
I was a full-time project manager, running big switchgear jobs for an electrical distribution company. So I did that for 10 years and I was so bored by it. So bored. And I was eventually wanting to go into sales because that was like the only avenue that I thought could like be exciting for me. And then right before that happened, the whole restaurant thing started happening. That was kind of like,
It's a bit of a transition.
yeah.
Talk to me about starting the restaurant. What was that process like?
So what I did was I sat down with a few people in the restaurant business to
Where did you
go,
have these connections from?
just from knowing like friends of mine knew like owners of restaurants and they were like, oh, you should sit with this person. Oh, this person knows this person. He could help you with this. So I really reached out to whoever I could. Um, so I knew I needed a liquor license. So that was one of the first things I did. So I hired an expediter to do that. So through these connections, somebody told me who to call, who to use. People told me like what permits I needed, what to do with the town, all those things. I didn't know any of them. So along the way, I just like was like, oh, I need to do that. Oh, I need, you know what I mean? Like I just
Oh, I
learned.
very much know what you mean.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I didn't know anything, but by doing it, I came to learn it.
I think that if I could clip that one last statement, I think that that should be the mantra for all business owners. If I didn't know, I don't know, I'm not going to quote you perfectly, but you said you essentially learned by doing it. You didn't know
Yeah.
what you were doing, but you learned by doing it. And I think that that is I think that that is the mantra of an entrepreneur, because I think that you talk to so many people that say, oh, I want to do this, but I don't know I don't have the whole plan, or I want to do that, but I don't know how this is going to work out. Or alternatively, the people that try to get all their ducks in a row beforehand, but like once you start walking, those ducks go awry,
Right.
and like
Yeah.
you just gotta start. And that probably said this in every podcast episode. You just gotta start, and you just learn as you go.
That's it.
Especially like your perfect example, somebody that wasn't in the restaurant industry, say, hey, I want to open up a restaurant, and you just learn as you go. And it sucks sometimes, and it's amazing sometimes, and you definitely screw up and lose money, and you definitely have great opportunities where you make a lot of money, and
Right.
it's just how business works. And I think that so many people have missed opportunities by not taking that opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I had to like let go of the fear. Like, I don't remember being scared because I knew, not that I know, but I had a feeling that it would be like a successful thing. Because it was not something that everybody's doing and it's different. Um, I was more excited, like a nervous excitement, but I was never scared to do it because I just feel like for me personally, when I try to do something and I put my all into something, it usually works out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Let's talk about the expediter really quickly,
oh yeah.
because I find that really interesting, and I think that that's a pressure point for a lot of businesses, particularly in your industry, the restaurant industry. You also mentioned like permits and everything, and I just had a recent conversation on the podcast with um, a, a property management group. I guess it was what they were considered.
I feel like I watched that one.
Probably, yeah,
Yeah.
probably. And one of the conversations we had is is the zoning of certain areas. Some things are commercial zoning, some things residential, and I know that kind of like when you want to open up a business, you have to talk to the town. They might not allow it, and one of the things they might not allow is liquor licenses. I hear about it a lot, not on the podcast, just through talking to businesses. For example, in certain villages, they'll say, "Oh, there's already 6 businesses that have liquor licenses,
Huh.
and they won't allow any more. So one of these businesses has to shut down, and they're a full-fledged business, a restaurant, for example, uh, and they won't allow us to get our, say they have their beer and wine license, they won't allow us to get our liquor license until one of these businesses closes because
Wow.
the town only allows 6 bars." And it's really interesting just to be like, wow, the politics behind this is crazy because like this place would be a perfect opportunity, like a place
Yeah.
like it's always it's always bumping, not crazy but bumping, and has a great young crowd, and it'd do great with a bar. I was like, why don't you guys have a bar when we're not allowed to, and all the
Well, I feel
different
like in
things.
town there was a few spots like that.
I'm not getting into names.
Yeah.
That's why, yeah,
But like
I said
also
certain towns.
distances from certain
Yes.
businesses like churches and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's all these like, look. One of the things that I appreciated about the conversation that I had with that like his perspective from the property management group is he said if you don't have these regulations, you very quickly can lose the beauty of a town.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely right. Like a lot, like for example, you go to the south, and a lot of these places they were undeveloped land. So when they develop, they kind of just look like cookie cutter things, and like there's no like historic
no
beauty,
charm.
there's no charm. And a lot of these places are just like chain restaurants and stuff. There's no mom and pops. There's no there's
It's
no
all
long
strip
term.
malls.
Yeah, and look, that's just their culture right now because they have no. New York's been around for 600 years.
Yeah.
700 years. So we have 10 generations of people and cooks and restaurants and restaurants that have been around for 200 years. We have that here, so we have that culture. They don't have that down there because it was just developed 30 years ago.
Right.
And we want to maintain some of that, but sometimes it's like, okay, let's move forward. So I want to hear about the expediter and how that worked with the liquor license and what that whole process was like.
So it was super easy, and it was like hands down something I would totally recommend if a new business is trying to get their liquor license. It's so worth the money because the owner of the company came in, sat down with me, and just had a laundry list of items that I needed or that he needed from me. And I think I sat with him one time and then we followed up one other time and it was done. He just like sent the paperwork through to the state and you just waited for your temporary liquor license. And then I forgot how many months. I think it was 6 months till you get your permanent.
I guess it's just a probationary period.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you wanted to have a restaurant with a bar. What was the
Always.
thought? What was the thought process behind that?
I'm a very social person and I love to go out. And I just feel like it's an element that not that you need, but that's appealing to a lot of people. And people like to drink and have fun. And I personally love to sit at a bar, even if it's by myself. You get to talk to people and meet new people, and I just love it. So that was important to me to have a place with a bar.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
When I'm traveling, particularly because that's typically the only time I'm alone, is I love sitting at the bar and you have to talk to people next to you, meet new people, talk to the bartender. Especially if it's not like a Friday night where it's crazy, like
Yeah.
you can just actually have a conversation and hear. And I just love learn about people, and I love talking to people.
And you like have the most interesting conversations with people, like
Absolutely.
those times.
Absolutely.
I know, I agree.
So one thing I noticed is the elevated bar experience at your restaurant, where the drink that I had was phenomenal. It was so. Talk to me. How would you describe your restaurant? I know you kind of like you hinted at it with the aspect of like it's I guess more like traditional Chinese food but clean and like what you ate at home.
Yeah.
Your mom's cooking essentially. But like what would you describe it?
I would say it's so hard for me to box it, but I would say it's Chinese-Taiwanese, home style, but elevated. And then but like with a twist, because my brother's always coming up with new dishes and trying new specials that aren't necessarily what we ate growing up, but just things he's trying, and which I think is great because we'll have our base menu, which is stuff that we did grow up eating, but then we're always just trying to be exciting and different. And so, as an example, we tried the sesame chicken that was not on the original menu, and then it did so well. It's actually our #1 seller.
Wow.
It ended up on the menu.
You think that's because it's familiar to people?
Probably, but it's also really, really,
Sure,
really
everything
good.
was really. I mean,
Yeah.
I ordered a lot of food,
Yes.
and it was. I also want to say I left there. Oftentimes when I don't like eating out because I don't really feel good when I eat out.
Yep.
It actually affects people like, oh, the seed oils is that, and like, look, it is definitely true. But I actually, and people, a lot of people just say it because it is true, but they don't necessarily feel the effects of it. I had been feeling the effects of it for a long
Really?
time. Yeah, I would eat out, and I just feel like not, I guess
Heavy.
heavy and
Yeah.
gross and just like bloated, and I just almost sick. Like I wouldn't necessarily get sick from it, but I just would just not feel myself. So we started cooking at home a lot more. I don't. I'm
Are you
not like
gluten free or
I'm
no?
not gluten free, but I would say I'm gluten. It's as silly as it sounds, gluten sensitive. Like
Okay.
I think all the enriched flours just don't sit well with me. So like I mean, we make our own sourdoughs at home, and like So I'm telling you,
Another
I'm
side
ready for
business.
I'm ready
Another
for
side business.
I'm ready for the homestead.
Oh my God.
But like, so I eat a ton of bread, and it doesn't affect me,
Because sourdough.
because it's
So
sour.
good for you.
It's sourdough because it's again fermented, but also it's like it's 3 ingredients as opposed to you look at the thing of bread, it's 15 different
I know.
or 30 different ingredients. I didn't necessarily feel that way when I left your restaurant, and I ate a lot of food. So continue.
So a lot of people do say that they don't feel gross and tired and like
Yeah.
they need to drink a lot of water when they eat our food, which is so I know MSG is not inherently bad, but we don't use MSG in our cooking. Um, and we don't use a lot of stuff like if you get our special sauteed baby bok choy, it's just soy, oil, salt. There's really garlic. That's really it.
Yeah.
And but it's like you're tasting the actual food. It's not covered with a bunch of things. So I think that's important.
So is that how you originally said clean cooking, clean Chinese cooking, clean Chinese food? Is
I
that?
don't want to say clean. It's just, I don't know, a healthier.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I
I
went to
mean,
your
but we
restaurant.
have fried foods too. So like, I wouldn't call fried foods healthy, right? I don't know.
I think it depends on what they're fried in. I personally don't think frying is inherently bad.
Me neither.
I think that it's what you're frying in potentially that is bad.
Yeah.
I think fat's necessary.
I don't want to like say that we're this clean, overly healthy restaurant because it's not. Not everything is.
Mm.
I just, I don't know.
Cleaner option.
Yeah.
Elevated Chinese food.
I always say elevated.
Yeah.
It's elevated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you walk in, you absolutely get that experience.
Yeah.
I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised, because I obviously want to see you guys succeed. I went in on a Wednesday night, a random Wednesday night.
It was busy that day.
And it was so busy.
Yeah.
Oh, was that not the norm? Because that's what I was surprised. I was like, wow, you guys are so busy.
Yeah.
So I guess, so tell me about that. What's that like?
So somebody in the industry did tell me it's like you can compare this day to a day last year, the same day, and it makes no sense. Like it's just up and down, no rhyme or reason. Like I find that if it's rainy, we could be busy. Or if it's rainy, sometimes we're not busy. You know what I mean? It doesn't, like, nothing makes sense. I looked at what we did last Easter and I was like, oh, nothing really fluctuated. So I was curious about this week before Easter, and we were super busy Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then Friday, Saturday, which we're always busy, like hands down, no question, it was slow. So I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense.
How long have you been in business at this point?
A little over a year. So February 8th, we opened.
So I guess we're still kind of trying to figure out the trends of the industry. And I guess the benefits, though, is having colleagues in the industry be like, what do you think about this? Has it been slow for you? Has it been slow,
Yeah. And a lot of people told us we would be slow in the winter. So January, February were really slow months. So December, January, February were our busiest months.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's really just navigating and figuring it out. I want to talk family dynamics.
Okay.
You mentioned that it's you and your brother partners. Am I correct to understand that your mom makes a lot of the food as well, or?
So my mom is in charge of making the pork dumplings, the shrimp dumplings, and the veggie dumplings, and then she makes the beef braise, which goes into our beef noodle soup, and the beef goes into the beef wrap, and then she makes our chicken stock, which is really like a bone broth because she puts like beef ribs and pork ribs in it. And those two soups make up the beef noodle soup. So she makes all those items. So she's like our silent partner.
Yeah.
She's there 6 days a week, for hours. Like she's there right now. Wow. I just left her.
Wow.
Yeah, she is definitely the heart and huge part of the business. She's just not our partner.
Yeah.
On
when are you guys opening for lunch?
Soon. So I keep saying this. My brother is dying to open for lunch, and he has a whole separate lunch menu in his mind. Wow. Oh yeah. But it's not a big menu. It's very small, like 5, 6 items. We're trying to get steady staffing in the back of the kitchen for dinner service.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about
Yeah.
staffing.
Yeah.
Actually, before we even talk about staffing, so let's side note that. I want to talk about family dynamics. Let's
Oh
know
yeah.
that really quickly. So how is it? Talk to me about Matt and running a business with your brother.
I would say, to be completely honest, and everybody says this, like working with family is really hard. We had a really tough go our first year. Um, so me and my brother were very opposite in personality, but he runs the back of the house and I run the front of the house. So it works because he's really good at what he does back there and I'm really good at what I do in the front. And but sometimes we figured out like what triggers him about me and what triggers me about him. So through the year we've come to realize those things. And I would say like this year has been a lot better just trying to navigate those things and
Yeah.
how to just work with each other because we're there all the time. We're
Oh
there
yeah.
6 days a week.
What would be one piece of advice to somebody listening about working with family?
Don't do it. No, I don't know. Don't do it.
That's fair.
I don't.
That's a fair piece of advice.
I wouldn't change it because I couldn't do it without them.
Mm,
And I think that if there's something to be said about working with family because they're not ever gonna just leave and give up because they're in it. But then also I think about like, if my brother was working with somebody else that wasn't a family member, he'd probably be treating that person differently as we all
sure.
do. But at the same time, it's kind of like their blood and they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've heard it said
So
that
it's like,
like working with family is harder, but it's more rewarding and probably more consistent. Can be more consistent, but it definitely has its issues. Just like working with any family, you can't necessarily just fire your brother.
yeah.
You know.
I need him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
So let's talk about staffing.
yeah.
What has that been like?
So because I worked in this space prior to when I started owning it,
You mean the actual physical location or the industry? When you
the
say the
physical
space?
location,
Yeah. Okay.
all the staff that worked at the restaurant prior, I kept,
Wow.
except for the back of the house. So the bartenders and the servers. So
What
they're
type of
like,
restaurant was it beforehand?
it was like American Italian
Okay.
ish. They're like family. They're like amazing people. They're amazing people. And I was like, I don't even know the first thing about and where to hire new people. So I was like, let me just keep them all on board because they know the space, they know the customers, which is also a great thing because people come to see them and love them and they're amazing. Like I wouldn't be able to do what I do without them.
Yeah.
But I would say the back of the house has really been rough. It's been a rough thing.
In what sense?
So you hire these people and, we treat everybody like family. And then it's like you think that you have this certain relationship with these people. And then it's happened to us now 2 or 3 times where the person will just like one day not show up for work and never come back. And there's no phone call. We can't reach them. We have no idea where they went. And that's it.
Yeah.
And it's really sucks.
How do you navigate that?
Frantically. And it always works out and it has always worked out. But I feel like, will it always work out? I don't know.
I'm sure it will. It's a
We've gotten
personality
lucky.
type to make it work out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's what else are you gonna do? Shut down the business?
Right. There's
So
no
you'll figure it out. Yeah,
for
you'll figure it
to
out.
Yeah. So we've had people like my first chef that we brought on who was always like temporary. He has like filled in the holes when we needed him to. There have been instances where somebody had come to interview and he went somewhere else. But when one of our chefs left, literally I was pulling out of my driveway and he called me, this guy that we interviewed, and he's like, "Hey, any chance you're still looking for somebody?" It was like you couldn't have like timed that better. And I was like, "Oh my God, like, are you serious? My guy is not here today. He's like, I'll be there today." And he came and he helped us for, I would say, a good half year. And then he ended up moving to Hawaii to start a food truck.
Wow.
But yeah, he ended up leaving us. But like everybody should be doing what they want to do. And so like you can't be mad at people wanting to
Pursue
follow their
dreams,
dreams, right? So we're always just, I feel like every time we get into a groove, we're just starting over every time.
Mm.
So that's really hard.
Yeah, it's
You know what I
still
mean?
relatively new though, so he's still
know.
finding your footing. It'll get because you look at other restaurants and stuff, and some of the back of I mean, I don't know fully, but there's some of these people have been there
Years,
years.
years.
So it's just navigating the footing and finding the right opportunity and the right person that believes in the vision as much. So like, I guess you're really trying to one, you're creating your culture as you go along, and once that culture is established, it's finding somebody that believes in the culture and wants to pursue that culture with you, and then it becomes a family like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the hard part is that because we're such a small business and a new business,
Yeah.
we couldn't even offer somebody more money or more incentive to stay because there's like we can only afford so much. So I think that's a hard part for us too.
Hmm.
Even if I wanted to keep somebody and pay them double, I couldn't
Hmm.
because
Let's
it's not
talk.
there.
Let's talk. So let's talk about that really quickly. How did you get your name out there? How did you grow the business? You show up one day and now what?
Pretty much. We word of mouth. So word of mouth has been really great for us. Um, we did, we started our Instagram, Facebook. Me and my brother are just doing it still because we can't afford to do anything else. Um, I would say we opened in February. Then around the June time, we brought in a lot of influencers, a handful of influencers, to just like plug us and stuff.
Talk to me about that process.
So a lot of them, I feel like they reached out to us and were like, "Hey, are you interested in having me come there and try your food in exchange for a meal?" So
So is
we
that
didn't pay
tip?
any of these
That I
people.
was gonna ask. It's
Yeah,
typically just for the meal then.
for the meal. It was usually for them and a guest, and then we just comp them for their drinks and their meal,
Wow.
which I thought was like a fair
Sure.
exchange.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I was weary about it at first because to me that's not really genuine.
Because it's almost just like buying them, buying a fake review.
So like you invite this person in, right? And you're trading a meal. They're never going to say anything bad about you, right? Never.
Yeah, that's the tough part about the industry is.
So that's kind of I was like before we did it, I was on the edge about it
Mm,
because I didn't know how I felt about it because I only want genuine reviews,
sure.
bad or good.
Yeah.
I'm still on the fence about it,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. It is tough because
right?
from the influencer aspect, like you would want, I wouldn't. So, for example, we talked about before we started filming how I used to do these music breakdowns where I'd listen to a
Yes.
song and talk about it. And there's two schools of thoughts with this, and there are some people that be like, "This song sucks. It's the worst song this artist ever made," and that's their genuine opinion, and that they are entitled to it. But that was never my personality, so I would always try to find something good in the song, even if I hated the
How did you
song.
pick the song?
A lot of it was either what was relevant or a lot of it was through request. Through the comments of like the YouTube videos, I'd post a video and somebody would say, "Hey, I would love it if you checked out this song," and then I would look into it and see if it was the right fit for the channel, and if it was, then I'd be like, "Okay, yeah, sure." Um, and again, some things were terrible. I thought they were terrible, but like there's always something that you can
What would you say?
comment
It was
on.
terrible? No.
No, it was
No.
not my person. So I
Yeah. Okay.
understand that is what I'm saying. But on the flip side, there's always something that good that can be said. You can always
Yes.
find something. You can always find the silver lining of something, or you could talk
That's
about
a good
like
point.
just the construction of it. Like, oh, this is how they made it. I don't have to say that I don't like it. It's just this
Yeah,
is how this is. Oh, that was a cool. You can always find something, especially if you're looking for it.
it's true.
But I understand because you're not going to get a genuine review. Unless you
Yeah.
specifically, maybe they'll tell you in person, be like, hey, I want to know. You don't have to. You can post whatever you want, but I want to know genuinely what your experience was, and then you take that feedback yourself, and then.
That's true.
But I understand that because you want like you don't want a fluffed up.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
If so I
So how
always
was the experience though? What was the
I
experience
thought it
like
was
that?
great. It helped us.
You noticed an ROI from that?
So there was like I would say just like a couple of influencers that actually brought in people. And the only way I know that is because the customers would tell me, "Hey, I saw you from this guy's TikTok or whatever." And I'd be like, "Oh, that's awesome." And there were a couple of them that brought in a bunch of people. Like, I saw this guy, I saw her.
Wow,
So then like if I get one customer out of it, it's worth it for me.
absolutely. Especially
So
because it's a free meal. Like it's not like it's really costing you that
yeah.
much money.
And I get a customer, and usually if I get the customer through the door, usually they'll come back.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about reoccurring customers.
Yeah. I have many of them. Yeah.
What do you think brings them back?
I like to think it's because we've created this experience for them where it's comfortable. They feel like they're maybe like coming over to my house, where we make them feel like they're part of the family, which is really important for me. And it's not even, people always say, like, oh, you're always so happy when you greet people at the door. I'm genuinely happy when I greet people at the door because I'm just thankful that people are coming through the door to eat a meal there, whether they're returning or not. Because I think that there are so many choices out there. They don't have to come to Mama Chan's. They can go anywhere, but
Yeah, especially around here, there's a lot of options. Sure.
yeah. And I like the people that come back week after week after week. I had somebody come in 3 times in the past week. That's not even a joke. Um, and to me, that just says something like that we're doing something right.
Hmm.
So I think people just like the environment. Music is a big part of it for me. Like I always have music playing, and people love my playlists. And so we have good food. We're not trying to have amazing food. We just have good food. We have great staff, and I think we're just creating this environment and experience that people really love. Um, and it's nice because I'm booking like a lot of parties now. So I'm having somebody's 80th birthday party in May,
So how does
which
that
is
work? You could like, would you close down the restaurant for that, or?
so usually I'll do it on a Sunday when we're closed,
Okay.
and they'll rent out the space. Or if they want to do it on the weekend, I'll do it either as like a lunch when we're closed, or either really early in the night or really late in the night, depending on the size of the party.
So we got on the topic briefly about lunch, and
Yeah.
then we pivoted to the staffing topic because is that the crux in the road of opening for lunch is
Yeah.
consistent staffing.
It's that, like, I don't understand how we'll open for lunch while not having a steady crew in the back for dinner,
Mm.
because it's like you're taking on a whole other animal, while not even being stable in the back.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that,
Seems like a wise choice.
yeah, so that's always been my argument with my brother. Not argument, but like my point. How are we opening for lunch and taking on a whole? Because it's like I'm there starting 8 to 9 in the morning, and then I run home, cook dinner, come back, and I'm there for the rest of the night. So I'm there a lot, and
Cook
just
dinner
think,
at home for yourself?
no, for my 2 kids.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And when I think about opening for lunch, that's like even more hours and prep that I'll have to be there.
Mm.
So it's a
Yeah,
lot.
that is a lot.
Yeah. So, but we'll get there. I'd like to try it and see if it even is worth it to do lunch. I don't know if that area,
I
I don't
would.
know.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I showed up thinking that you guys had lunch, and you didn't have lunch.
I was like, oh, we're closed today.
I know. Yeah, well, you closed. You
We were
closed
just
for
closed.
lunch,
Yeah.
not for the whole day,
Not
though.
for the whole
Yeah,
day.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
just lunch, and you have the pizzeria right next door, which is always bumping for lunch. So
Yes.
that people are. It's not like it's the area's issue for lunch.
That's
It's
true.
it is definitely an option for lunch. But you're right. The staffing is definitely an issue.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the structure of the staffing. Do you have a manager, or are you the
No.
manager?
So I'm owner operator. Yeah. I manage, and I usually during the week will have one server on the floor, one bartender, and then on
So
the,
it's a tight crew then.
oh yeah, but I don't need, it's such a
No, no,
small
not in a
space.
bad way. Like it's a close knit is really what I meant.
Yeah. And then on the weekends I'll bring in a runner, Fridays and Saturdays. And in the back we have our dishwasher, we have 2 chefs, and then my brother expedites. And then on the weekends we bring in a third person back there.
Yeah,
So
so it is a tight crew,
yeah,
which is nice
yeah.
to have
And it's
all these
important
moving
for
parts.
all of us to get along, and not that
Mm.
everybody's gonna
There's no
like everybody.
avoiding. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you had 35 people back there, you could avoid the person you don't
Yeah.
like. But you're right. That's a great point.
So
The
it's,
dynamic is very important.
I think culture is really important to just have
So
like a,
talk to me about that. What's the culture, and how do you define that? How do you structure that culture?
I think it's organic. Like, I think
What kind of culture are you trying to cultivate?
a very chill one.
Okay.
Yeah, so even when we get like crazy hectic on the weekends, everybody's pretty chill. Like, nobody gets frazzled or crazy, and it's like we all talk to each other like normal.
Hmm.
Nobody's yelling at anybody, which is really important. Because we've had a couple of people in the back that get a little assertive.
Fiery.
Yeah, fiery, during service. And I understand that happens, but even in the beginning, my brother was like, "Oh, this is the culture. This is how it is in the kitchen. You don't know." And I'm like, "Well, it's not going to be the culture in our kitchen.
Sure.
That's our choice to hire somebody and either stand for that behavior or not." And that was a huge thing for me because he was like, because we've had people in back there that weren't so nice during service, and I like where people in the front were like, "I can't work with this person," and would get angry during service because of that person. And I was like, that's not okay for me, you know?
Yeah.
So it's really important that it's funny because I have pretty upbeat music in the front, and then if you go in the back, my brother is like really chill music.
Really?
Yeah. So it's really funny. So he really keeps it really chill in the back.
Yeah. I admire that. I think that culture is really important. I admire the fact that you're actively trying to cultivate a specific culture and just not say, oh, he's a great chef, so we're not gonna.
Yeah, no.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
What do you see is next for you in the industry or at Mama Chan's?
I don't know.
What are you looking to do next? Is it new menu items? Is it new drinks? Is it
It's
lot?
always new menu items, new drinks.
Okay.
So I think we're trying to do that weekly as food, especially.
As we approach the warmer months, how, do you see yourself changing the menu? What does that look like?
I think we'll always keep the base menu, but maybe gear our menu more towards like summer friendly foods. We're gonna open up to the outside. We have outdoor seating.
Wow, cool.
Yeah,
Very
which
nice.
is really cool. I love to be outside.
Is that open yet?
People have been on Saturday. People sat outside.
I guess
It's
weather
really nice.
weather dependent. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's fully covered. So,
Yeah.
I don't know what I see for us. I feel like every day I'm just like trying to get through the day,
Sure.
even though somebody in the business told me that I need to step away from that and kind of project forward 5 years or have like a goal in mind. But I just feel like there's never enough time. There's never enough time,
I
you
understand
know?
that. I'm curious how much of your not necessarily sales, but like the people that come in, are they there for drinks? Are they there for food and drinks? Are they just here just
Both.
for food?
I would say mostly for both.
Okay.
I was hoping that I would get some kind of bar crowd, like late night, but Northport is a very snoozy town. So I'm not really getting that. Uh, Maybe that'll change when it gets warmer out. I don't know.
What do you think you could do to change that?
I don't know. Maybe have more of a bar focused menu. I don't know.
A late night bar focus
Yeah,
menu?
maybe.
It is an interesting town, but I think that'd be a great spot because you can like you said, it's not a huge spot, but you can
Yeah.
get a decent amount of people in there,
Yeah.
and the parking kind of sucks, which sucks, but um, there's nothing you can really do about that. But like you wouldn't want 500 people there, so like
Yeah.
for a late night scene, so it would be
Yeah.
I think you could cultivate a really nice late night because again, it's not that rowdy, crazy scene. It's an elevated. Hey, we're gonna have a couple drinks, and
Yeah. And it's not, our prices are reasonable. So it's not like you're going
that
out
was
and you're
another thing
spending.
I thought too is for the ambiance. I was looked at the menu. I was like, oh wow, this is. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't like I just
Yeah.
for what you had on in the ambiance. It was cheaper than I expected it to be in a good way. I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, oh, I thought this was going to be a lot more expensive than it
Yeah.
was.
I actually would love to raise our prices a little.
I
But
think you have room to do that for sure.
yeah, my brother doesn't want to box people out. He wants everybody to
Could you do
be.
that with the menu? Could you have, I guess, an inclusive menu where there are items for everybody?
So I think that's why the specials are important because when we do the specials, we can charge more for them, especially because we're doing like a lot of like, we're doing more seafood on the specials and you could charge more for seafood, more meat forward dishes. So I think that's where we could kind of raise the prices there.
How did you build the connections for even just the delivery and the food services and stuff like that?
We actually still do a lot of that ourselves. So my mom does a lot of the running around. Justin will do a lot of the running around, and I'm always doing the local running around. So we're still, because our space is so small, we don't have storage. So we're multiple times, all of us, doing different stores all over. So my brother comes from Fresh Meadows, so he's doing all the like Asian grocery stores and stuff. And then my mom's doing all the big Costco, BJ's runs, and I'm doing all the local. Like I just picked up stuff from meat farms today.
So you're buying from like smaller businesses, not like
Yeah,
again like the
yeah. But I
Aldo.
buy cases of stuff. But yeah, because I'm not running to the city to go buy stuff.
But so I guess a lot isn't being delivered.
No, not really. Um, alcohol. We get our ice cream delivered because that's coming from like a private distributor. Um, that's really it.
So
We
last
can't
but
meet minimums because we can't order that much. You know what I
sure,
mean? So it's
I
hard.
guess because you can't store it. Yeah,
Yeah. And we
very
have so
interesting.
many specialty things that you can only get this from here, this from here, you know what I mean? So it's hard.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what would you say? Last question I'll wrap it up with is if somebody were to come to your restaurant, what would you recommend the first thing that they try is?
Oh, a cocktail.
Okay.
Um,
So you're proud of the bar, very proud of the bar. It seems like.
I do. I love it. I
Yeah.
just, and I don't know. I love the bar.
Sure, understandably. I mean, the drink I had was phenomenal.
Yeah. And I'm not a mixologist at all, not even in the slightest. But I don't know. I just try to come up with some fun stuff, or I'll pull from the internet and see what works, you know? And then I always go over and tell people what our, like if they've never been, what our top sellers are. And I always try to push the specials because they could always come back for the other stuff.
Very interesting.
But like, try the specials,
Yeah.
you know, because we're usually when we do it, then we don't do it again unless it does really well. Then we'll
Yeah.
bring it back. But
Like the sesame chicken.
yeah, like the salt and pepper shrimp people loved.
Mm.
I think that should really go on the menu, but
Hmm.
it needs separate space to actually do
Yeah,
that.
very
So
interesting. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. So I really appreciate you taking the time. It was really interesting to hear the dynamics of your business and also just
thank you.
the exciting story of the success that you have had in the 14 months that you guys have been in business. So I look forward to seeing you guys becoming a staple of town, and
Thank you.
let's hope that that happens. So thank you to you, but also to all the guests that, or to all the listeners that watch this and listen to this and wherever you listen. So thank you for listening. I appreciate you. If you are a business owner or you know any business owners that you think might be a good fit for this podcast, please feel free to reach out, and I'll see you guys in the next video. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.